Haribol, 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 go to Haribol. Shiny Thai, go. Anitai, go to Haribol, 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 go to Haribol. Gaur Premanande Harinama Sankirtan ki Srila Prabhupada ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Vidivrajagacharya Stottara Satta Shishimad His Divine Grace Shilesi Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Vidivrajagacharya Stottara Satta Shishimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj ki Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kund Giri Govardhana ki Shri Vrindavan Dhama ki Shri Navadvip Dhama ki Kalachanji Dhama ki Gangamai ki Jamunamai ki Bhakti Devi ki Tulsi Maharani ki Harinam Sankirtan ki Brihat Mridanga ki Prashadam distribution ki Samabeda Bhakta Brinda ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. I was afraid I'm going to get my teeth knocked out. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivara Dhari Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamunatiravanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada. Gaura Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nashta Prayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Jai. So welcome everyone to this morning's class. It's going to be a little bit of an atypical Srimad Bhagavatam class as we're going to go through some large sections of the 8th and 9th canto. We won't have a particular verse that we'll focus on, but we're going to see a lot of different episodes here, events leading up to the appearance of Lord Krishna. So before I begin, Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumilitanjena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachardane Nirvashesha Shunyavadi Pashatade Shatarane. Because as you all know, 2 days from now is Janmashtami, the appearance day of Lord Krishna. So on Janmashtami, I'm sure we're going to hear all about Krishna's actual appearance and the immediate events of his appearance and what he does in his early life. So I didn't want to steal the fire of the Janmashtami day speakers, so I thought I'll present events leading up to that. So we're building up to Krishna's appearance. And Krishna's appearance is discussed in the 10th canto, beginning of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. We're going to start way back in the 8th canto. So the 8th and 9th cantos are very interesting because a lot of things happen in those cantos, especially the 9th canto, that you're kind of like, huh? So we're going to see some of those, and we'll see the purpose of those pastimes towards the end of this presentation. So back in 8th canto, chapter 5, there's an incident where Durvasa Muni, who's a great sage who's known for becoming very easily angered and cursing people, he sees Lord Indra coming on his elephant Airavata, and he's thinking, oh, he's appreciating Lord Indra, such a great demigod, the king of heaven, he's so powerful, he's so good, let me offer a garland to him. So Durvasa Muni's in this mood of respectfulness, appreciation, he offers a garland to Indra. But Indra, he occasionally becomes proud. And there are many pastimes in Bhagavatam where Indra, his pride becomes a cause of trouble for him. And he has to eat humble pie. So this is one such incident where Indra's feeling proud of his material opulences, and he doesn't appreciate the gift of the garland from Durvasa Muni, and he takes it in his hand, and instead of putting it on himself, he puts it on the trunk of his elephant. And then the elephant, of course, elephant doesn't know what to do with the garland, so he just kind of, throws it on the ground and ends up stepping on it and crushing it. And Durvasa Muni feels very offended that his gift was not appreciated. And so he curses Indra that because of your material opulence, you become proud and you've committed this offense. Therefore, I curse you that you will become poverty-stricken. You're going to lose all your opulences and you're going to become weak. So that was a big problem, not just for Indra, but for all the demigods, because the demigods are headed by Indra, at least on Swarga. So when Indra becomes weak, all the demigods also become weak, and they're feeling vulnerable, and they're feeling in a lot of anxiety, because in the heavenly planets, although we think of heavenly planets as a nice place where everybody's happy and everyone's beautiful and everything's wonderful, but actually there's a lot of tension in the heavenly planets, because the demons also reside in higher planetary systems, and they're always trying to usurp the control of the demigods. They're always trying to drive the demigods out of their heavenly kingdoms and take over heaven. So now that Indra's been cursed and the demigods are weak, they're all afraid that the demons are going to attack, and they're going to boot them out of their positions, and they're going to be homeless. So they go to Lord Brahma, and they approach Lord Brahma, who's on his upper planetary systems in Brahmaloka, and they say, Brahma, we're in trouble, we're really worried, we need your help, we need to become strong again so the demons don't take over. So then Lord Brahma leads them to the shore of the ocean of milk, where they appeal to Lord Vishnu, who's lying there on Anantashesh very peacefully with his feet being massaged by Lakshmi Devi. And they tell him everything that happened, and they ask him for, what can we do to revive our strength? So then Lord Vishnu says, there's a way. You can become strong again. You need to drink the nectar from the pot of immortality. So the demigod's like, what is this pot of immortality, and how do we get this nectar? He says that you have to cooperate with the demons. You have to go to them and make a truce and explain to them that if they help you in this endeavor to get the pot, then they can also drink the nectar and become immortal. So the demigods do that. They approach Bali Maharaj, who's the king of the demons. And of course the demons are thinking, yeah, great idea. We'll go there, we'll help the demigods get this pot of nectar, we'll take the pot, we'll drink it for ourselves, and, forget about them. So, of course, the demigods were thinking the same thing, right? That we're going to get this for ourselves, we're going to get their help, but the nectar's for us. So anyways, in their hearts, they're all thinking selfishly, but externally, they cooperate. And so they follow the instructions of Lord Vishnu. They get Mandara mountain with great difficulty, and with the help of Garuda, they carry it over to the ocean of milk, and they put it in the water. They get a snake. There's a huge snake called Vasuki, and they use him as the rope. So they wrap Vasuki around. And the demons say, so it's going to be heads or tails, right? Who's going to get the head? Who's going to get the tails? So of the snake. So the demons are thinking, oh, the head's better than the tail. So let the demigods have the tail. So the demigods take the tail. The demons realize afterwards that it wasn't such a good choice, because the heads of Vasuki breathe fire. So they're getting scorched by this fire. Anyways, they're churning. A little bit into the churning, they run into a problem that Mandara mountain starts sinking. So it's sinking down into the ocean. It's going down, down, down. They're losing their grip. Vasuki's getting stressed out because he doesn't want to be underwater. And it looks like the whole effort's going to fail. But then someone comes to the rescue. Who is it? Kurma avatar. So Lord Vishnu incarnates as Kurma Dev, and he goes down there because turtles go into the water, and he swims right underneath the Mandara hill, and then it rests gently on his back. And then while it's being churned, the mountain is rotating, and it's giving him a nice back scratch. Actually, when the demigods went to approach Lord Vishnu initially, he was thinking, you know, I could just empower the demigods just by my willing, just by my glance. I can revitalize them and bring them to full strength. But that would be boring. Let's have some fun with this. Let's have a huge drama. Let's have an interesting pastime of churning the milk. And anyways, I've got a little itch on my back that I need to be scratched. So he enacted this whole pastime. He gave them all the instructions how to do this pastime. So they're churning. Everything's going well. And the first thing that comes out of this churning process is what? A lot of poison, right? The hala poison. And so everybody's coughing and choking. It's emitting this poisonous gas. They're about to pass out. And then they remember that Lord Vishnu had told them that this is going to happen. And when this happens, you need to call who? Lord Shiva. So Lord Shiva came on the scene, and he drinks up the poison. So this is Lord Shiva's mercy that in this pastime it said that characteristic of a great personality is that they're willing to voluntarily accept austerities for the benefit of others. So Lord Shiva shows this by his example, and this should be the character of all devotees, that we're willing to accept some austerity, take some trouble to go out and help others to become Krishna conscious. So Lord Shiva does this, and you can see that down by his feet, you have all the snakes and scorpions. So as he was sipping, some drops were falling from his hand, and that poison was drunk up by the snakes and scorpions. And so to this day, we have venomous creatures that have poison in them. Otherwise, all the poison on the earth was held by Lord Shiva within his throat. He didn't swallow it, but he held it there, and he neutralized it by his mystic potencies. And he ended up with a line on his throat. His throat became black, or bluish black, and so he's called Nilakanta. Yeah. So then the churning continues, and then eventually many things came out of that. Many wonderful things came out of the churning process. And then finally, in the end, a beautiful incarnation of the Lord named Dhanvantari appeared, and he had the pot of nectar, the cherished pot of nectar that was the goal of all this hard work, was in his hands. And you see there in the corner there's one demon. So as soon as he appeared with the nectar, then one of the demons snatched it. He immediately grabbed the whole pot of nectar and went running back to the demons, and all the demons got into a huddle, and they're like, now we've got the nectar. But as is the nature of demons, they started fighting over it, right? Demons aren't very good at sharing. So the demons started squabbling amongst themselves, and there's all these disputes. In the meantime, the demigods, they became concerned, so they went to Lord Vishnu and they said, what happened? You know, you promised that we would get this nectar, and now the demons were just supposed to help us, but now they've taken the nectar for themselves. Now they're going to become strong, and we're going to remain weak, and they're surely going to defeat us, and this whole effort has backfired. So they're really worried. Lord Vishnu says, don't worry. The demons are not going to drink the nectar. They're just going to fight amongst themselves, and then I'm going to come and really bewilder them. So then while they're fighting, then Lord Vishnu appears in a very exceptional form. Which form is that? Mohini Murti. He comes in a female form, and the Mohini Murti form is extraordinarily beautiful. Right? Krishna is already amazingly beautiful. All the incarnations are beautiful, but particularly when he comes in a female form, because generally it's considered that female form is more beautiful than the male form. So when Krishna, even in his male form, is so, all attractively beautiful, when he comes in a female, it's like next level. So when the demons see this form of Mohini Murti, they're immediately just like, whoa. They forget about the nectar for some time, and they're just like gawking, at her beauty with their jaws dropped and their senses inflamed. And they all want to possess this beautiful woman as their own, for their own enjoyment. And so they start flattering her and saying all kinds of sweet things to try to get her attention and get her affection, like that. And then And because, anyways, they were fighting over who was going to get the nectar, then one of them says, I know, let's just let her decide. Like, she doesn't even ask. They just spontaneously say, oh, let her decide who's going to get the nectar. So she takes the pot, and then she says, now don't worry, you demons. I'll just give a little bit to the demigods, and then I'll come back and give all the rest of it to you. Just sit here peacefully. You know, I trust you're all very powerful, very, qualified personalities, and I'll be right back. So they sit down, the demigods line up, and then she's going through and she's giving nectar to all the demigods, one demigod after another. And there's only one demon that's very tricky. Which demon was that? Rahu. So this demon Rahu, he disguises himself as a demigod, and he sits there in the lineup of demigods, and Mohini Murti starts pouring some nectar in his mouth, and then when the nectar already got into his mouth, she realizes, oh no, he's a demon. And then immediately another expansion of Lord Vishnu, his name was Ajit, he appears and he chops off the head of Rahu before he can get a chance to swallow it. So, so Rahu's body dies from the neck down, he's dead. But his head, because the nectar of immortality was there in his mouth, his head stayed eternal. And so Rahu's head became a planet, which, because he's a demon, it has an evil influence on people. Right? So if you're going through your Rahu period, that's a difficult phase of life. And also, Rahu has a specific vendetta against the sun. So Rahu's always trying to attack the sun god. And so when he tries to attack the sun god, then there's an eclipse. The Rahu planet blocks out the sunlight for some time, like we experienced just recently. So the demigods get the nectar. The demons don't get any. So the demigods become strong. Now that the demigods are strong, they're like, all right, we're going to battle now. We're going to defeat these demons once and for all. So there's this huge battle. And the demigods are just smashing the demons. They're killing them right, left, and center. And so many of them are dying. And the ones who realize that they're going to get killed, they flee. And they're thinking that because the demigods are powerful right now, we don't have a chance. We need to just wait. So the surviving demons, they get together. And they're thinking, all right, we've just been driven out of the higher planets. The demigods have taken over everything here. We need a place to be. We need to regroup, strengthen ourselves, build our armies, and prepare for when the time is right to attack. Where are we going to go? So they're looking around the universe. They're thinking, and then they see this nice little planet, very sweet, pretty, innocent little blue planet sitting there. It's not a higher planet, so they don't have to worry about the demigods. It's not, a hellish or lower planet that's too difficult to live on. It's just, nice planet, comfortable. So that's the one. So the demons, they choose the Earth planet to set up their camp, basically, to claim as their Death Star, basically. So then their strategy is that, all right, all you demons, what we're going to do is we need to take birth in the royal families, the families of kings on earth, and that way we don't need to fight with anyone. We will just grow up in these royal families. We'll live nice, comfortable, pampered lives, and then we'll inherit the kingdoms, and we will become the kings of the planet Earth. We'll take over Earth. We'll use the resources of Earth. We'll build up our strength, and then we'll launch our attack against the demigods. So that's what they did. All the demons came to the earth. And that's how we got all the kings, right? Like Kamsa and Jarasandha and Duryodhana. There were all these, and so many of them. They were demons who took birth in the family of kings. And as they were growing up and coming into power, then it created a big burden for Mother Earth. So Mother Earth, the Earth planet, carries the weight of everything that's happening here, right? Like so many buildings and activities and people and animals, all these things are being supported by the earth. And the earth can bear a lot of weight, right? We see that so many things are on the earth is bearing it. But there's one thing that Mother Earth cannot bear, Does anyone know what that is? She's okay with some humans. It said that Mother Earth can bear anything except a liar. Yeah. So Mother Earth, she has a hard time bearing the weight of a liar. So these demons, they were liars, they were cheaters, they were, they committed all kinds of atrocities. And so Mother Earth was being overburdened. She just couldn't tolerate the weight of these demons anymore. And so she needed to get help. And you'll see here so the Earth is not just a planet, the Earth is also a goddess. There's the Earth planet, Bhuloka, and there's also Bhumi Devi, the goddess of the Earth. So when she was feeling really under a lot of duress, then she took the form of a cow, because she's going to approach Lord Brahma. She's going to approach the demigods, and devotees have a soft spot for cows, right? We want to make sure that the cows are safe, that they're happy, that they're protected, because Krishna loves cows. So she's thinking, if I take the form of a cow, then they're going to hear my pleas with compassion. They're going to help me. They're going to protect me from this. They're going to save me from this burden. So she takes the form of a cow, and she goes to the ocean of milk again, same place, another complaint. She goes to demigods. The demigods go to Brahma. Brahma goes to Lord Vishnu and explains the situation. And Lord Vishnu, he doesn't speak this time, but Lord Brahma, because Lord Brahma is such a qualified person, he's so tuned in to the Lord, that he just sits down in meditation and he prays to the Lord for help. And from within his heart, like it says in the first verse, Tene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye, that the Lord often enlightens Brahma from within. So he reveals to Lord Brahma that don't worry, just hold tight, I'm coming. And I'm going to come in a very special form, my original form, the form that is the source of me even. And who is that? Krishna. He says, I'm coming in due course of time in the form of Krishna, and I'm going to free the earth of all these demons. I'm going to kill all of these demons and give relief to Mother Earth, and deliver all the devotees, and reestablish religious principles for the benefit of all. So then, that's one line of events that leads up to Krishna's appearance. And that's where the 10th canto starts. Then, Krishna took birth in which dynasty? The Yadu dynasty. All right, so now we're going to hear about how Krishna took birth in the Yadu dynasty. So for this, we're going to go back to the 9th canto to hear about some of the interesting things that took place in the Yadu dynasty. So we'll go back to the time of King Yayati. So this King Yayati, I mean, there are other things that I could talk about that came before this, but we'll just start from here. So King Yayati, he was a king. He was a very pious king. And one day he was out hunting, because kings would hunt because they had to practice their fighting skills, and they had to be brave so that when they went into battle, they were prepared to fight against, and face danger and use weapons and like that. So he was out hunting one day, and he became thirsty. So he's looking for some source of water to get a drink, and then he sees a well. So he goes over to this well, and he's thinking, I'll just put the bucket down there and pull it up on the rope and get some water. So he looks down the well to try to see if there's some kind of bucket there, and he sees there's a naked girl in the bottom of that well, naked teenage girl. So immediately, because he's a very noble king, he's like, oh my God, what's going on here? But of course he feels sorry for this girl, like, I need to help her. She's stuck in the bottom of this well. What a tragic thing. So he takes off his chadar and he throws it down there. He says, please cover yourself. And then he gives her some time to wrap up. And then he reaches down and he takes her hand and he pulls her out of the well. So now she's on land, and she's still holding his hand, and she's looking at him, and she says something very shocking to him. She says, my dear king, because you've accepted my hand, that means that you need to accept me as your wife. And so King Yayati is like, whoa, that was fast. So he's not so sure about that. But he's thinking, whatever the case may be, I need to get this girl home. I need to bring her to her family and see that she's safe. So before we get to that, let's go back to who is this teenage girl and how did she get to be naked in the bottom of the well? So who is she? Devayani, the daughter of Shukracharya. Yeah, she's Devayani. Sharmista is the other one. So what happened was Sharmista and Devayani were friends, and they were out playing in the area. They were just playing. All the friends were there. So there's a bunch of girls, and they're all just having fun times, running through the fields and playing. And then they come across a nice little reservoir of water, like a pond, beautiful pond with lotus flowers. And they look in this pond, and it's a hot day, so they're thinking, let's go for a swim. So they don't want to go in with their clothes because then they'll have to walk around with wet clothes afterwards. So they look around and they think, oh, nobody's here. This is a completely isolated place. Nobody ever comes here. So they just thought, what the heck? We'll just take off all of our clothes, go into the water, and when we come out, we'll get dressed and it'll be fine. So that's what they do. They take off their clothes, they go into the water, they're bathing naked in the water, they're having a good time swimming and splashing each other and sporting in the water. And then one of them sees that Lord Shiva's coming on his bull with Parvati on the back. And they think, oh no, Lord Shiva's way off in the distance. We need to get out. We need to get dressed quick before he sees us because he's not going to like that we're swimming naked here. And also we're going to feel really embarrassed because they were naturally shy. So they get out and they're fumbling around. They're finding their clothes. They're trying to put them on. And then by mistake, Sharmista puts on Devayani's dress. So then Devayani, she goes to find her dress. She can't find it, and she sees Sharmista wearing her dress, and she gets angry. She's like, what's going on? Because she's standing there naked. Lord Shiva's coming, so she's like stressed out, and she can't even get dressed because this girl's wearing her clothes. She's like, what are you doing wearing my dress? Don't you know that you're just a low daughter of a Kshatriya, and I am a Brahmani? Don't you understand the hierarchy here? How dare you wear the clothes of your superior? So she speaks in a way that's very condescending, that makes Sharmista feel really, insulted. Because, so Devayani's the daughter of Shukracharya, who's a Brahmin. He's not just the Brahmin, but he's like the priest of the demons. He's the head Brahmin in the whole community. He's like an important figure. And Sharmista, her father is a Kshatriya. I can't remember his name. Do you remember his name? Vishvaparva. Vishvaparva? Yeah, so he's a Kshatriya. And so when Devayani spoke in an insulting way to Sharmista, then, Kshatriyas, they don't take that well. Right? Dishonor is worse than death. And that's true even if you're a teenage Kshatriya girl. So Sharmista got even more angry, and she said, what are you talking about? You Brahmins, you're just beggars. You come to my house to beg alms because you subsist on the charity given to you by the Kshatriyas. Without us, you would just be starving. And not only does she say that, but she pushes Devayani into the well. So that's how Devayani ends up in the well. And then, when that happens, naked. When that happens, then all the other girls, they're like, oh no, this really escalated. This got really bad really fast. And because they know that Shukracharya is so powerful, because as a Brahmin, he has the power to just like, in a second, he doesn't have to fight or anything. He can just curse people. So all the girls get scared. They all go running home. Sharmista goes to her house, and they leave Devayani in the well. So when Devayani gets pulled out of the well, Yayati takes her home, and then Yayati just leaves her there, and he goes home. And then Devayani tells her whole story to Shukracharya, to her father. She's, sobbing and telling her sad story to her father. And anyone who has parents you know how it feels when you find out that your child was mistreated, right? You're like, I'm going to make this right? I'm going to rectify the situation. Don't you worry. So then Shukracharya, with Devayani, holding Devayani's hand, he stomped over to the house of Vishvaparva, Sharmista's father, and he said, you know, I heard that your daughter did this to my daughter, and I'm very upset about this. What do you have to say for yourself? So Vishvaparva, he's also scared that he's going to get cursed. So he says, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. You know, my daughter, she's just a silly little girl. She doesn't know anything. Just, you know, just tell us whatever we need to do to rectify the situation. So then Shukracharya, he looks at Devayani and he says, it's up to you, my dear daughter. You say what you need them to do. Whatever will satisfy you is what's going to happen here. So then Devayani, she says, all right. So I'm going to marry King Yayati, and I want this Sharmista to be my maidservant. She's going to be my personal slave for the rest of her life. She has to live in the servants' quarters of my palace and do whatever I tell her to do. So her and all of her maidservants. So Vishvaparva has no choice but to agree, because he's already said, whatever you say we'll do. So that's it. The deal is done. Devayani gets married to Yayati. They move into the palace. Sharmista moves into the servants' quarters. But before this happens, Shukracharya adds another condition to this situation. That, okay, Sharmista, she can be she'll live in the palace as your servant. But it was known that sometimes the servant women who lived in the palace would have relationships with the king and would have children. That was kind of a standard thing, because it was the Kshatriya dharma that if a woman approached him for a child, he had to accept. So sometimes that would happen with the maidservants who lived in the palace, and they would have children fathered by the king. So Shukracharya said, that can't happen. So Sharmista cannot have a child, at least not with Yayati, because Yayati is Devayani's husband, and Devayani's not going to share him with the likes of Sharmista. So they agreed. That was all agreed upon. So then they got married, the palace, they're all living there. Things are going on. In due course of time, Devayani gives birth to her first son, whose name, did I skip some slides? Oh, no, not yet, we're not there yet. Devayani gives birth to her son, his first son, whose name was Yadu. Devayani and Yayati's son was Yadu. Yadu was a very noble, very wonderful child, and he was growing up there. Devayani had another son after that, but then Sharmista was living there, and she was seeing, these sweet little boys running in the palace. Saw how Devayani was, blissful, in her motherly affection towards her children, taking care of them, holding them, feeding them, bathing them. And Sharmista was sometimes assisting with that work. And she was thinking, if only I had my own child, I would be happy. So she was really feeling so frustrated and depressed. And she was longing so much to have a child. So she knew that there was a condition, but she just couldn't tolerate the desire to have her own child anymore, and she approached Yayati. And she was crying and begging him. And Yayati, he also was aware of the condition, but he felt sorry for Sharmista. He thought, this really isn't fair. This girl's been through a lot. And also he was attracted to Sharmista. So in the end, they did get together, and Sharmista became pregnant, and in due course of time, she gave birth to a son. In fact, she had 3 sons. She had 2, and the youngest one was Puru. I don't remember the names of the first 2. Do you know? No. Those are some obscure facts. Anyways, the youngest one's name was... Okay. The youngest one was Puru. We know that. So the oldest son was Devayani's son, Yadu, and the youngest son was Sharmista's son, Puru. Okay, so when Devayani found out that Sharmista had children and that the father was the king, then she was furious. So again, she went running home to Daddy. She went to Shukracharya and she said, remember you said that this should never happen? Well, it has happened. You need to do something about it. There needs to be some punishment for this girl. And for, well, she wasn't thinking to punish her father. She was thinking the Charmista. But Shukracharya didn't see it that way. He thought that Yayati is responsible. So he said, bring your husband here. So Yayati went there to Shukracharya. He said, you know very well what I said. You violated my will, and therefore I curse you. It was out of your lust to enjoy this girl, and so now I'm going to curse you to lose your youth. Because in youth, the senses are very strong. He's thinking if I make him an old invalid, then he'll have no scope for, lustful activities. He'll be done with all that automatically. So he cursed him to become an old invalid. And that's what we see here. He goes there, and Devayani's there. She's like, oh my God, what did my father just do? And then immediately she realizes that, this thing kind of backfired on her too, because, okay, Yayati got punished, and maybe he deserved it, but she also got punished because now she no longer has a young, strong, healthy, handsome husband. She's got this old, useless, invalid husband, and what is she going to do? So she's like, Dad, is there some way that this can be kind of like changed? And he says, all right, if Yayati can find someone who will agree to transfer their youth to him and in exchange accept his old age and invalidity, then he can become a young man again. So then immediately Yayati's thinking, no problem. I have 5 sons. They're all youthful, and at least one of them is going to agree. So then he goes to his sons. First he goes to Yadu. And he's thinking, and Yadu's such a nice boy. He's so submissive, so obedient to his father. Yayati is sure that Yadu's immediately going to agree. But Yadu says, I'm sorry, father, I can't do that. And Yayati's really surprised. He's very shocked, actually, that Yadu, for the first time ever, disobeyed him. So there's an important reason why Yadu disobeyed him. And that is because somehow Yadu knew that Krishna was going to take birth in his dynasty. And because Yadu was actually a devotee, then he didn't want to delay the appearance of Krishna. So he's thinking, if I accept invalidity, I won't be able to have a child. Or at least I'll have to wait until, my father dies or realizes that his mistake, which he does in the end, and it transfers my youth back to me, and then only I'll be able to marry and have a child, and my dynasty will go on. So he didn't want to slow down the appearance of Krishna, because the sooner Krishna comes, the better. So on those conditions. So it was for a higher purpose. So that's kind of a principle that we can give up a lower religious principle for the sake of a higher religious principle. So he neglected the principle of obedience to his father in order to follow the principle of Krishna's appearance, of bringing in the good that will come from Krishna's appearance in this world. So Yadu declined. Then he went to the second son, the second 2 sons of Devayani. They both declined, not for any higher purpose, but just because they didn't want to miss out on their sense gratification. So, and then he went to the first son of Devayani. He also declined. And then finally, the youngest son, Puru, agreed. So then Puru accepted the old age. Yayati became young again, and he was happy. He was so happy with Puru that he blessed him, that you will be the heir to the throne. You will become the king, even though you're the youngest child, even though you're the son of a maidservant, it doesn't matter. You will be the king, and you will be the head of a dynasty of kings. And Puru's dynasty ended up, in due course of time, becoming the Kuru dynasty, which was the core of the kings came from this very exalted royal Kuru dynasty. Like Pandu, and Dhritarashtra, Maharaj Yudhisthira, Parikshit, they're all in the Kuru dynasty. Whereas Yayati was not happy with Yadu, despite his higher purpose. So he cursed Yadu that you will not be the king, even though you're the firstborn son, and nor will anyone in your dynasty ever be king. So it's interesting that Krishna appeared in the Yadu dynasty, and all the Yadus were highly qualified Kshatriyas. What to speak of Krishna? He was the highest qualified person. He was a supreme person, but none of them could become rightfully kings because of this curse. So actually, in Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna displays his universal form, then Arjuna, he realizes fully that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he regrets the times when he was very familiar with Krishna, just thinking of him as a friend. And so, boys sometimes in play, they'll just insult each other, like, you're a wimp, you're a chicken, or whatever, right? They'll just, you guys do that, right, sometimes? You tease each other to try to get them going and get them to, play harder or wrestle or something like that. So sometimes Arjuna would also tease Krishna, and he would say things like, you're a wimp, you're just a Yadava, right? It was like a derogatory way of, derogatorily I would say, you're just a Yadava, you'll never be the king, forget it, I'm a Kaurava, I'm, my family of the kings. So he regretted joking with it. He specifically says, for calling you Yadava, I'm so sorry, Krishna, I didn't realize your supreme position. So it's interesting that the dynasty that Krishna appeared in, all these nefarious things happened, right? He appeared in a dynasty where, there was all this cursing and counter-cursing. Actually, there's a reason why, I forgot to tell you this story, but Devayani, she was, when she first asked Yayati to marry her, Yayati was thinking, wait a minute, you're from a Brahmin family, I'm a Kshatriya, I can't marry you, that's not a good match, because like a Brahmin man, in those times they were very strict about the Varna matching. So generally you would marry within your Varna, or else, a man from a higher Varna could marry a woman from a lower Varna, but not vice versa. So technically Devayani was from a higher Varna because she was a Brahmin, and Yayati was from a lower Varna. So he's like, no, this is a pratiloma, this is not a good match at all. But Devayani, she asked him to marry her because she knew that she could never marry a Brahmin, because she had been cursed herself. So what happened was, her father, Shukracharya, he was a teacher, right? He was a Brahmin. He would teach Shastra, he would teach rituals, he would teach all these priestly, Brahminical, Vedic things. And so he had a class of students, and one of the students in his class, his name was Kacha. He was actually the son of Brihaspati, and he had approached Shukracharya to learn the art of bringing people back from the dead. Which was a very useful art, especially if there was a battle. If a warrior had died on a battlefield, you could bring him back to life. So he was learning that from Shukracharya, and he was learning everything really well. Actually, he was just about to complete his studies. But what happened is that Devayani kind of got a crush on this boy, Kacha. She thought, wow, Kacha's so nice, I want to marry him. So she actually went and she disclosed her feelings to Kacha. And Kacha said, I'm really sorry, I appreciate your sentiments, but there's no way I can marry you because you're the daughter of my teacher. You're the daughter of my spiritual master, and I revere you as practically on the same level as my spiritual master. I see you as a superior. So it'll be difficult for me to just, have you as my wife, because the wife is meant to serve the husband, but I see you as I should serve you. You're my superior. So for those reasons, he said he declined, but she felt rejected. And so she cursed him that because you rejected me, I curse you that you'll forget everything that my father taught you. And then he turns around and curses her, and he says that because you've cursed me out of anger, you are not acting like a Brahmin, and then he said, so I curse you that you will never marry a Brahmin. So she knew she had this curse on her. So when she saw Yayati, this handsome, qualified Kshatriya, she's like, all right, he's the one. Anyway, so all this went on, all these cursing and counter-cursing and, all these injustices and insults and, people being unfaithful, people breaking their promises, and people being overwhelmed by lust and anger. And yet Krishna appears in this family. And also, even closer to Krishna's appearance, it doesn't get better. It's not like those things happened way back when. If we're going to go way back when, it gets even worse, because there's Pururava, who is like the great-great-grandfather of Yayati, and he, has this scandalous fling with Urvashi from Gandharva Loka, and then their grandson is Nahusha, who also does a lot of heinous things you can read about, but I'm not going to talk about them now because they're a little, let's say, X-rated, kind of like rated R pastimes. But anyways, Krishna appears in this dynasty, and then it doesn't get, so then, his mother, Devaki, there's a threat on her life, right? So imagine this is you. Imagine your mother, that your uncle is trying to kill your mother. That's like a really bad family problem, right? And then afterwards, he comes and kills all of your older brothers, right? The 6 older brothers of Krishna, they all got murdered by Devaki's brother Kamsa. And then Krishna, he appears in a jail, right? It's not really a great place to take birth. So I was meditating on all these things, the whole dynasty and the immediate events leading up to Krishna's appearance, like what is going on? What is Krishna demonstrating here? And so, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he could have arranged for an idyllic situation, to take birth in a beautiful palace, surrounded by all kinds of loving, caring, mother-like people and everything ideal. But he doesn't. So what is he teaching us through all these horrific events? And one thing that I thought of is that he's teaching us that he can appear in any situation. Krishna is completely independent, and bhakti is also independent. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Our situation doesn't have to be perfect. So if we consider, the world has so many problems, right? Political problems, social problems, economic problems, environmental problems. There are so many problems in the world. And yet Krishna appears in the world. And even within ISKCON, you might think, okay, that's the world, but this is a spiritual movement. But even with ISKCON, there's so many problems, right? There's dissension amongst devotees. There's corruption all over the place. There's abuse. If you just go online, you can find out so many problems in ISKCON. And of course, not all of them are true, but some of them are true. And even if all of them were true, Krishna can still appear amidst the dissension, amidst the corruption, amidst the abuse, amidst all the problems. Krishna can still appear in the same way that he appeared in the Yadu dynasty. Or we might think in our temple, right? Maybe we might think we're not happy with the way things are managed, or there's this shortcoming, there's this fault. But still, Krishna is here. Radha Kalachandji are here. Krishna, Kalachandji is still smiling there. Radharani is still raising her right hand and blessing us. We have the presence of Krishna in our lives, despite whatever might be going on that we deem as imperfect. And then if we look at our own situations, right, like let's say our families, our immediate families, there may be so many unfavorable circumstances in our families, right? Maybe they're not devotees, maybe they're not vegetarians, maybe they're antagonistic towards us being Krishna conscious. But that's no impediment, right? Krishna can still appear. He can still be there. We can still have the deity in our home. We can still practice Krishna consciousness within the very home that somebody is antagonistic, or somebody is eating meat, or somebody is an alcoholic, or whatever. It doesn't matter. We can still be Krishna conscious. And then if we look even deeper into our own hearts, and we analyze our own hearts, We may see lust, we may see greed, anger, envy, madness, all these things. But it's not that Krishna can't appear there, right? Krishna can appear despite all these things. And actually, Krishna doesn't care about the external situation. What he cares about is our sincerity. So if we're sincere, then despite all these things, Krishna will still come. He'll still be present in our hearts. And in fact, Krishna appears not only, it's not that Krishna can appear when it's bad, but Krishna appears precisely because it's bad, right? That's what he says. He says that paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya chadushkritam dharma samstapanartaya sambhavami yuge yuge. That he comes to deliver the pious. Why do the pious need delivering? Because it's bad, right? Why he comes to annihilate the miscreants? Why? Because there are too many demons. It's really bad. Why does he need to reestablish the principles of religion? Because they're lost. It's just a bad situation all around. That's when he appears. And that's also confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, where he says, Indrari vakulam lokam mridayanti yuge yuge. So whenever there's a disturbance created by the demons, then the Lord protects, he incarnates to protect the theists. So those disturbances may be, in the world, they may be in our society, they may be in our temple, they may be in our families, they may be in our hearts. But Krishna comes to free us from those things. He comes to help us in all these different ways. And, in our class the other day, Radhika Raman Prabhu was saying that actually Krishna can do things in an easy way, but he often chooses to make a drama, right? He chooses for things to be more dramatic, like with the demigods when they first went to him because they were feeling weak. He could have solved the problem immediately, but he didn't. He's like, no, we're going to have this whole pastime of churning the milk, and all these crazy things are going to happen. So get ready for some drama. But when Krishna appears, then things change. He makes a lot of adjustments. So we see that despite all these difficulties in his family, at the time of his birth, he arranges all the constellations to come into the most auspicious formations. Everything is perfectly aligned astrologically. It says, Prabhupada writes, when the time was mature for the appearance of the Lord, the constellations became very auspicious. And similarly, when we take to Krishna consciousness, then everything in our lives becomes auspicious. That's one of the characteristics of pure devotional service, that it's shubhada, that it bestows auspiciousness. And so, even if everything's a disaster, as soon as we add Krishna to our lives, it becomes shubha. So shubha means fortune, prosperity, virtue, beauty, and happiness. So we just need to be sincere, and we need to be patient. Krishna is going to do everything in due course of time. It's a gradual process. We're all works in process. And in the meantime, just don't focus on the faults, right? Because there are going to be faults. It's Kali Yuga, Kalir Dosha Nidhe Rajan. It's an ocean of faults. There are going to be faults. There are going to be problems in the world, in the movement, in our temples, in our families, and we're going to have our own faults. Don't focus on those things. Instead, focus on the positive things. Focus on japa. Focus on chanting attentive japa. Focus on Krishna Katha. Focus on our services. Take shelter of our services and work for positive change within our sphere of influence, within our realm of responsibility. And in that way, we're going to feel Krishna's presence. Krishna is going to appear very strongly in our lives in all these different dimensions. Krishna has already appeared. By the grace of Srila Prabhupada, Krishna is here in the form of the deity, in the form of the holy name, in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam, represented by our gurus and the Vaishnavas who help us, who instruct us. So Srila Prabhupada said, don't expect utopia. But he said, expect Krishna's mercy. So Krishna is very kind. And we're celebrating his appearance in 2 days from now. So let's meditate on all the ways that Krishna appears in our lives, all the ways that we have access to Krishna. and focus on the positive things. And don't be discouraged by the negative things, because they will be there. They're not going to go away. They didn't go away in the past, they're not going away in the present, and they won't go away in the future. They may be adjusted, right? We're always trying to adjust things to make them better, but just when we adjust things, something else comes. There's always going to be some problem. There's always going to be something that Maya is going to say, look, this is a good reason for you to not be Krishna conscious. This is a good reason for you to lose faith in Krishna consciousness, to lose faith in ISKCON, to lose faith in your temple managers, to lose faith in the deity, to lose faith in the holy name. Maya's going to give us so many good reasons to lose faith. But we have to understand that the perception of all these faults is just Maya. Because the same things are, if we see them from a positive point of view, they're all reasons to be more Krishna conscious. Right? They're all reasons to take more shelter of Krishna, to chant with more urgency, with more feeling and desperation, to really immerse ourselves in Srimad Bhagavatam as our shelter, as our only means of conquest, right? Tato jaya mudirayat. And to nurture loving relationships with those devotees that we do trust. Because there are pure devotees in our movement. There are really nice devotees in our movement who are doing everything they can to help others make spiritual progress. So Krishna's mercy manifests in all these ways, and we need to take it. Don't run away from it. Don't let Maya drag us away from it by apparent faults. Okay, so I'll end there. Any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you very much. It was very nicely gathered and presented. My question is, yes, like we, as you rightly said, we need to focus on japa, on sadhana, and the science of how to still deal with the circumstances or the situations which we might be in. Sometimes they can be really overwhelming, but still we need to deal with them. And so what is your guidance to not give hope and continue pursuing our endeavor, and where to draw the line, that okay, let Krishna take care of this, I'm gonna be out. Or should I really try to do something? So how how to make that decision, because I need to take some step, or should I just
I understand
hope
your
I
question.
answered.
So how much to try to rectify the wrongs that we see, and how much to leave it up to Krishna? Yeah. So, like I was saying, we need to work within our sphere of influence and within our sphere of responsibility. Right? So if it's something that we can change, then we need to do everything we can to change it. And especially if it's our responsibility to change it. Right? Like there's one incident in the temple, I think it was the New York temple, where this was long ago, it was during Srila Prabhupada's time, and the wife of the temple president was not a vegetarian, and she was actually she was cooking chicken in the temple, and that chicken was being offered to the deities on the altar. So that was going on. And so the devotees were thinking, this is so wrong, but what are we going to do? Because at that time in the movement, there was a lot of preaching of, just surrender, surrender to your authorities, your temple authorities, and just be humble and that kind of thing. So the devotees weren't, they knew what was going on, and maybe they were, talking amongst themselves, but they weren't really doing much. And temple president wasn't doing much, obviously, or it wouldn't be happening. And then finally, Srila Prabhupada got to know about it. And he came and he said, this has to stop immediately. This has to stop immediately. So first he called all the kind of general devotees who weren't leaders in the temple. And he said, I'm very grateful to you for how you continued your services peacefully. You knew this was going on. You didn't, cause a riot. You didn't leave. You just continued coming to morning program, doing your sadhana, doing your services, and depending on Krishna. And then he called in only the leaders. He let everybody else go, and he kept the leaders. And he said, but I'm not happy with you, because this is your responsibility. How could you let this go on? How could you do this, allow this to go on in Krishna's temple when you know it's wrong and it's your responsibility to fix it? So depending on, Srila Prabhupada dealt with them very differently depending on their position. So we need to understand what our position is, right? If I'm in a position where it's my responsibility to change, then I really need to do whatever I can to make that change for the benefit of the devotees, to maintain the ISKCON standards, to maintain, the temple as a place where people are inspired in their spiritual lives. But if it's not my area of influence, if it's not my responsibility, then focus on what I can do. Focus on ways that I can improve my personal life, my family life, my services, and just pray to Krishna that this situation soon become rectified. We may bring it to the attention of those who are responsible, right? Like, the appropriate thing to do in that case is to, go to the temple authorities and be like, Prabhu, this is happening. I don't really understand what's going on here. I feel like it's not right. Can you please deal with it? Can you please address it? Right? And then leave it in their hands. Right? So, but then if you are the authority, or if it's in a sphere of your life, let's say it's your family situation and something that you can change, or of course we can always change ourselves. Right? We can always change ourselves. That's always within our sphere of influence.
Just to continue on the same question, it's every time it's not so simple, because we try to go practice Krishna consciousness with our heart, and so just saying that this is not my responsibility, and just so again it's a very maybe I'll learn as things are moving, but when to use your heart and when to use your mind, that's, I think, is the question. In what circumstances because same situations, it's an opportunity or not opportunity, but I need to do something, and at the same time, so it's not black and white. That's what I'm trying.
It's not so black and white. So it's something that we can also discuss, right, with our senior devotees, with mentors, with the temple authorities. Like, can I be of assistance, right?